My name is Quantel Thomas. I'm 27 years old and I'm born and raised in Lima, Ohio. One thing that a lot of people know me for is my transformation, going from over 300 pounds to under 200 in under a year. My transformation went viral. Millions upon millions of people have seen my transformation, and even they got motivated to lose weight, get fit, and find confidence within themselves. But the one thing that not a lot of people saw within my transformation was the person that still hate himself, even after all these years. The insecurities, the doubt, you questioning yourself. A lot of that is the true feelings that I face after this whole time. When I was a young kid, I had your standard childhood, nothing terrible. Played the video game, played football when I was young. That was the one thing I could really say that I loved, especially the video game, all night, all day, you playing the game. Those were some of my favorite activities. Back growing up, we had a few pets, but the one pet that really mattered so much in my life was my cat. His name was Fat Fat. Had this cat for 17 years. 17 years. You imagine going from a young boy to a grown man. That's a lot of time to be with your furry friend. And when that time goes, we talk about some fucking pain you have to face. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I could just say my childhood was quite normal, with a few things I noticed. And one thing I could really say is environment, the people around it. You never know who you're around until you grew up, and now you start to really see the real. One thing I could say, my mom was definitely busy a lot, so I had to go to other people's houses. It went from my aunts, other different family members. But there is one particular house that caused a lot of trauma. And this house had plenty of cousins, all in one house. So I was 8 years old around the time. I would say it's 2007. And a lot of my time has been spent at this house. Usually it'd be real fun, a lot of the cousins get together, play around outside, your typical kid stuff, But one thing I've always noticed, right? Drugs was in the house. One being weed, of course, and the parents usually would smoke with the kids. Now you thinking, for example, one of my cousins only a few years older than me. At the time, I would say he was like 10-ish. And you smoking weed with your own mom and dad, that's wild as hell. But I was seeing that, they would smoke with their own kids. And eventually it passed on to me. By the time some of my cousins will have me alone, here they passing me the blunt. And here I'm smoking weed at 8 years old, bro. That's my first time really being truly exposed to it. And that's just one of many things I've experienced at such a young age. No child should ever have to experience. Unfortunately, I did. Now, there's 4 that I can really think of at this time. And they vary in age. But there is one particular relative within that group, for some reason, decided to take advantage of me. And it happened multiple times in this house. I remember one night I was asleep and I woke up to this weird sensation in my back end. Slowly waking up, it's one of my cousins. He whispered in my ear, "Can I play with your butt?" That phrase has always been stuck with me for many, many years. And I just let it happen. That was the one of multiple times I could say it happened. But just carried on as usual. You know, still went over there, still smoking weed with him. Another thing I could say I could vividly remember is all the cousins would get together in the room, and they used to jack their own parents' fucking pornos, like the DVDs, the VHSs. They had them, right? And they used to play the pornos. Like I said, imagine being a child and you being exposed to just straight up X-rated content. Not knowing what the fuck you're seeing, but instantly getting aroused by it, you know, getting excited to see it. So here my brain is already getting fried the fuck up all in this house. At the time, it didn't really I didn't really process what really happened to me at that time. But as I got older, it's just those thoughts that kept ringing in my head. That shit actually happened. And you know what's crazy, bro? I'm still just getting started. You know, I could say another instance. Now, there's another individual that usually come in this house. I don't know the relation he has with the family, but he used to come there a lot. I remember it was just me and him in the room by ourselves. For some odd reason, he sees the opportunity to, you know what? I want you to give me some oral. So I remember he brought me over, dropped his pants, and made me suck his dick. And it happened. I had a whole dick in my mouth at 8 years old. 8 years old. That's another instance within that house. For a long time, those thoughts has really replayed in my head like, what the fuck happened? Did it really happen? Or am I just tripping? Was it right? Was it wrong? You know, a lot of these thoughts has been played in my head for many years, but I decided to just bury it. That was the biggest thing, was bury it. But then one day I come home fried as fuck. And my mom found out I'm going over there smoking weed, getting high. So that was the end of that. And I ain't been over there in quite some time. Quite some time. But what's even crazier, the whole rape thing wasn't even done. I'm still getting raped at that same age. So there's another cousin. We used to go over, kick it, whatever. There's a couple instances where he took advantage of me. I remember this one time in his room. I forgot what the fuck we was doing, but I remember we was just playing the game. One thing led to another. He decided he wanted to pull my pants down and just got right on it, down to business. Every time this shit happened to me, I always remember that feeling. The feeling of pain. You know, it wasn't a comfortable feeling when this shit was happening. But the question that I've always asked was why? You know, why me? Why was I the one to be chosen for this type of shit to happen to me? And it really wasn't just one time from this cousin either. I could say from the instances I could really count, I'll say about 6 to 7 times is when this type of activity was happening to me. And after a while, it just didn't happen no more. But the pain is there. The thoughts is there. From 9, 10, 11, 12, I've always thought about those instances that happened to me when I was 8 years old. And when you really think from a young boy getting violated, where is the protection? Why did it have to happen? But I buried it for quite some time. So around that time, about 11-ish, 12, that's when the weight starts to pack on. One thing I could really say is I'm a food. I love food. Food addict, foodie is pretty much who I am. I had a whole big appetite. You talking about I'm eating all the snacks, eating all the Debbie cakes. Give me all that. I'm eating good as fuck. Play football, here I'm overweight. And I remember all the times running laps, having to sweat the weight off, all that, But I think at the time I thought it was just a big appetite. Whole time it was me numbing myself from my reality. Food was the comfort that made me feel good during those times where the self-hatred, the doubt, all that starts to manifest. You talking as a young kid, you feeling these type of emotions when you should just be a fucking kid, You shouldn't have depression, hating yourself, questioning yourself and all that, but that's what I was doing. So then we go to the pornography. Like I said, I'm 8 years old being exposed to X-rated videos. So when I finally have an opportunity to have the PlayStation 3, this is about 2011. One thing is they have an internet browser where you can surf online and pretty much you can watch YouTube, all these other different sites, as long as you got Wi-Fi. But I remember one day I'm peeking through, this is at home, I'm peeking through the crack, my mom had my PlayStation 3, just playing around with it. But there was one particular site that I have seen her on. It was a site called YouPorn. And that was my first introduction to online porn at 11 years old. At 11 years old is when I finally discovered this whole other world. And that's when the addiction starts to come on in. Now you imagine, right? I'm sitting here finding DVDs, sneaking DVDs, getting on these sites, and you watching it multiple times. At that age is so damaging. It's very damaging. But I was on them, multiple times. But then when you go to school, go to public, you this shy introvert. You don't want to conversate. One of the biggest things I can really say is shame, guilt, doubt, all those feelings has haunted me throughout all those years. But here I'm finding my way to cope with food and porn, video games. You're spending from sunrise to sundown playing the game all night, all day. Call of Duty. Motherfucker, I'm trying to get that max prestige, the diamond camos. I'm trying to get all that. So I'm spending all my time playing the game. But when it comes to physical activity like sports, I'm letting myself go. And then I finally get to high school and I faced a severe football injury to where I was in the hospital for 8+ days. Pretty much missed my whole entire freshman year because I was in and out of hospitals. Life flighted, everything. I faced rhabdomyolysis, is when you overwork yourself to the point somewhere around your muscles just dies. and those toxins will get sent towards your kidneys. Those toxins can pretty much be deadly. And here, I'm suffering from rhabdomyolysis at 15 years old. A lot of this stuff just went down as a young kid. And by the time I finally got out the hospital, that's when the weight starts to pack on. So during that time, being in the hospital, I suffered from seizures, you name it, everything. And got out of the hospital. And that's when the mental health just started to decline. And that's when I had suicidal thoughts. I just wanted to kill myself all the time. My mom got wind of it. I made an attempt, and they called the squad on me. I was sent to a mental hospital for a few days. That's how I know I'm starting to have just issues within myself. Like, how come I have such dark thoughts of just wanting to kill myself? And just take me out, man. I don't want to be here no more. But I learned a lot from that mental hospital, but even after I left, those thoughts still lingered. And then I reached over 300 pounds at 17 years old. Damn. After that football injury, I fell off. Ate my feelings away. And even after I weighed 303 pounds, I just continued life like I just didn't give a fuck. I just didn't give a fuck about my own life. Even if the food killed me, I feel good while doing it. And that's the fucked up part. It doesn't matter how much you fucked your life up. You're complacent with fucking your life up. Just don't get to that point of being complacent with a shitty ass life. You can always run that shit back, get better. But at the time I just didn't know that. And that's when I finally hit senior year. That's where my second chance happened. That's when I was introduced to working out, lifting weights. So during that time, once the class finally started, and I put all my effort into the weights, just worked out. A month in, I seen results for the first time. Granted, I tried losing weight multiple times, but I was never consistent. The first time I was consistent for a month in that class, and I went from having man boobs, titties, no neck, to all of a sudden, my neck was a little slimmer. I looked a little slimmer. It was over with. I got addicted to working out. I remember in that class, bro, I would work out as hard as I could for that duration. It got to the point I even asked, could I come in and even in the morning? That's how much I was working out, and I lost significant weight even during that before graduation. But this was 2018. January 1st, 2018, I vowed I'm going to lose this weight. The class started, working out, seeing results, got hooked. And by the time November rolled around, I lost over 100 pounds. So I went from, when I first started, 284 pounds to 180 by November. And even after that, I continued to work out for years, for fucking years. I kept the weight off, but there's something that stuck with me during this whole time. And after 8 years of training, it's the self-hate, it's the doubt, it's those patterns that I created when I was 8. It's the thought patterns. That's when I start to realize there's a lot of deeper work that I need to fix them, you know? I'm not fully healed. All this working out shit is just a mask, a way to hide from the real. You went from one addiction, which it was video games, to now working out. Instead of playing on the PlayStation, you playing PlayStation in real life, but your mental stayed the same. Your mental stayed the same, and I realized it's the outside habits. It ain't even just the food. You know, you're still watching those videos. And that's where I start to talk about porn. Porn is one of those things that's today, in this generation, one of the worst things that's legalized right now. That's just out there. Easy to access. Back in the day, you talking 2007, 2011, you know, when there was DVDs and all that shit. And, you know, you still had to get on Wi-Fi, whatever, but nowadays, you got a phone. You got a phone and you just do a couple clicks, you're on the site, you're on a video. Next thing you know, you go into town on yourself. The shame, guilt, the anger is only built up and intensified every single time you watch this content. And I would watch this content multiple times, but then when you put yourself in real life, you realize, I feel weird, I feel awkward, you know, I'm not good enough. All these thoughts comes from those videos. And then by the time you get into a real relationship, you start interacting with real people, you're awkward. You can't even perform. You got all this anxiety. The perform part. So by the time I start to get, you know, have interaction with real women, I can't even get hard. I'm having erectile dysfunction. What the fuck? There's a real girl right here. Why the fuck? But I have no problem doing that with the videos. Why I can't do it with the real person? And that's where I'm starting to make the connection. It's the videos. The access use of those videos. And that's the one thing I kind of want to expose. Because, man, it's so rampant now. Easy access. It's all over media. There's just a massive issue when it comes to those videos. And the reason why I'm so open about my experience is because, well, how was I introduced to these videos? Oh, when I was 8 years old? When I was fucking 8 years old, getting violated? I was being exposed to shit like weed, alcohol, and this. This shit. No 8-year-old should ever have to watch that shit. No minors, no kids. But unfortunately for me, I was the one. I was like the target. But then I was continuing the trauma by going back to those videos. That's when I started to make this connection. Porn is just the devil in disguise. It robs you. It robs your soul every time you hop on there. And I start to see the effects of what it's doing to society. You know, by the time, let's say you quit and you go on a celibacy streak. Once you quit and you start retaining, you start to see how sexualized everything is. From movies, TV, video games, everything is so hyper-sexualized. Sex sells. So we're going to keep promoting this shit through any means. And it's crazy how profitable it is. You know, there's a lot of lonely folks out there, and they got to find their ways to comfort themselves of the loneliness. And one of that is the videos. And there's levels to it. Shit, from OnlyFans, you name it, bro. And the biggest thing you take out of it is all it's doing is harming. It doesn't save you from shit. There's no benefit in watching this content. All it's going to create is future predators. Future fucking predators. That all they want is to satisfy their desires. So now you have a generation of men and women that just don't even know how to fucking connect because they're traumatized. They're fucking traumatized, man. You know, one of the things I would say, lust is the killer of man. Lust is the one thing that's killing potentials. One of the hardest things to control. You know, you see it everywhere. You know, on a man's perspective, you know, you see a woman, first thing is, damn, she gorgeous. How can I tap that? You know, all the bullshit. You don't even realize where these thought patterns come from. A lot of young boys has probably ran through the same thing I ran through. Getting touched, full on raped, exposed to shit they shouldn't be exposed to. So now their brain is rotted. So now they carry themselves as thirsty predators. And it can happen from violating somebody else. They don't know better. You know, the trauma had been passed on to them. So now they become predators and pass it on to someone else. You gotta think, the shame, guilt, those that went through the same thing that I went through, you know, watching these videos and you just feel such a huge shame and guilt. And it's like, why can I not have a real relationship? And when I started really looking into the statistics of childhood sexual assault, the numbers are staggering. And I start to understand why society the way it is. You talking a fat population of young boys and young girls got violated in some way, shape, or form. Don't have no strong male models in their life. Probably got fucked up mother too. Fucked up life, fucked up upbringing, surrounded by drugs, alcohol, shitty people, you know, just shitty vices. So they manifested into this shitty ass person. At least that's what they believe, but that's their fucking paradigm because their environment growing up, this is all they know. You know, and then you go from a girl's perspective, all they think is their value comes from their looks, and that's all they know since they was a young girl. Most likely they got violated by males growing up, and that's all they know is this type of guy. You know, the guy, all they care about is relieving their desires. Everything is sexual versus a genuine connection. So no wonder why girls of today carry themselves the way they do. How can they trust this motherfucker? All they give a fuck about is just to get in the sheets. Are they gonna do a follow-up, connect, real dates? None of that shit. Because with social media, especially today, it's just controlling the whole population. It's controlling the whole fucking population. Tells you how to think versus you thinking for yourself. It's the one way to hide from the real. You know, you could turn your brain off for a second. You know, there's a lot of things with this phone and everything. We choose to hide versus face the real thing. You know, you want to hide from pills, alcohol, partying, hookups, and all that. It's just the same trauma you keep repeating. But then every time you're by yourself, you struggle with yourself. So that's why this video is very important for me to make, because I know there's a population out there that went through a similar story that I went through, where you got molested, violated at a young age, trauma happened, you ain't had no protection, you ain't told nobody, but when you do tell somebody, they use it against you. Think you lying. They turn their backs on you. So the best thing for you is to keep it to yourself. You know, fuck trying to tell somebody else if they ain't even gonna believe me. And that's where mental health comes in, where people turn to mass shooters, murderers, rapists, because that part that happened to them has never been resolved. They just buried that shit. And it became normal to them. It's very important to talk this shit out with someone that you truly trust, you know, versus whoever, you know. But this is my way of letting it out and heal the inner child. Instead of keeping this bullshit in, we're gonna release it. Because I have a story. It ain't even just me losing weight, getting fit, and motivating other people to get fit. There's a reason what brought me to the gym. And what brought me to the gym was extreme fucking hate for myself. That hatred, that anger, that depression, all that is put towards the weights, towards the gym. And that's what helped me lose the weight was the fucking hate. But even after losing the weight and you're still building yourself, now it's a different type where it's like, am I good enough? You never feel like you're good enough, but you always been good enough. You're worth it. You're not worthless. You're not a piece of shit. You are worth something. They should have protected you. You should have been protected. Know that you have worth, potential to create. All you have to do is know that, recognize that, and just put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. But that's where people have anxiety, all this other shit that's holding them back from putting themselves out because of this unresolved trauma that they still have a hard time coming out. Let that shit out. There's a meaning, like letting it go doesn't mean, you know, you sweep it under the rug or whatever. Just let that fucking bullshit go because it's just fucking weight that's holding you back from your fullest potentials. You have crazy amount of potential and you're wasting it with this doubt, uncertainty, fear, you know, just put yourself out there, man. How I made these connections. Over time, I decided I want to start boxing. And I've been boxing for 5 years, but I didn't start competing until 2024. And during my second fight, I won it, but during that fight, I tore my shoulder. Didn't even know at the time, but months later, going to the hospital, they're like, hey, bro, you just tore your shit. You tore your fucking labrum 180 degrees, bro. You need surgery. Crazy. You talking about 7 years at that point of full-blown training. Now I have no choice but to sit down with my thoughts. And during that first month of not really being able to do too much, especially that first week, that's when these thought patterns start to come and I start to realize why I am the way I am. And everything just stemmed from me being a kid and got violated and never had my answers. But one day, this was before my first fight, I confronted my abuser, the one that did most of the damage. He wanted to get one of my tickets to my first fight, and that was the opportunity to lay it out on him. Hey man, this shit happened, pretty much. And I'm confronting you. Now, I was expecting homie to just deny, oh, what the fuck you talking about? You know, this and that. He said, I'm sorry, instantly. he said, I'm sorry. And it's been a couple years now. I still think about that. Because how many people got that answer, right? Something happened to you. You confronted the abuser. He didn't even hide the fact he did that shit. He said, I'm sorry. Of course, I was still on his neck. Oh, fuck you, this and that. Want to beat your ass. You know, I even got him on phone and recorded our conversation. Me going off on him, basically. And because I pretty much exposed him online, now he had to act tough for a little bit. Oh, cuz I beat your ass and this and that and the third. But you was just apologizing to me earlier. I can't blame him because pretty much I just put the business out online, exposed his ass. Because you think about almost 20 fucking years of holding this shit in. The suicide attempts, the addictions, everything came from that fucking house. And that was my opportunity to just get his ass, and I got him. But what did I learn from that? What I learned, it's just crazy that he just said, I'm sorry, bro. And I had to learn something from that. And the biggest thing is, usually predators were victims themselves. And he was a victim, unfortunately, because he was young himself when he was doing that shit to me. He had to learn it from somewhere. And unfortunately, even his own family members was doing it to him multiple times. Same goes for the other cousin that was doing that same shit to me. He denied it flat out, but fuck that motherfucker. It had to happen to him for it to be passed down to me. And that's why I come to realize hurt people hurt people. Because once you hurt that person, everybody's born innocent. Being evil, being a predator and all that shit comes from learned behavior. That shit learned. That shit got installed into you from your environment. You was exposed. And you was supposed to be protected. So no wonder why, you got groups of individuals just lose themselves out there because they experience trauma and don't know how to deal with it, don't know how to talk it out or whatever. They try to find love, but they find love in the wrong places because the love you're finding is just a reflection of yourself. That's why all these fucked up relationships happen. You still trying to give off to your desires and your lust versus a genuine connection because you don't even got a connection with yourself first. You don't even know why you have these thought patterns to begin with. And that's why I had to start to realize that I need to talk to these people that went through the same shit I went through. I was 8 years old and I got violated 6+ fucking times, as far as I can remember. But how many for those that have been violated for years straight by adults, from a man, from a woman, it's all the same. You got violated as a kid and you carried that fucking shit for your whole life. It's probably a secret. You ain't even told nobody. But it's not your fault. I just want to let you know that if you 30, 40, 50, 20, even in your teens and this shit happened to you, it's not your fault. I'm talking to the young boy and the young girl that had this shit happen to you. You're precious. You should have been protected. You should have been loved. It's just not your fault. Don't carry that blame. Don't carry that hate. Because then you wonder why certain people want to be the perfect, individual. They wear this mask of, you want to be the helpful person. You want to be Captain Save every fucking body. You want to please everybody. You don't want to be a disappointment. All this other shit came from when you was a kid. How the way you have to, carry yourself and how you look, you base your values off your look. It's kind of ironic here, I got into fitness so I can look better, to present myself better, to be seen. When I felt invisible all my life. Felt invisible, felt like I didn't deserve love, feel like I just wasn't ready for it. I feel like I need to better myself. But see, when those type of opportunities come to you, real love, right? Real love comes to you, you shut it away. You shut that shit away because you ain't trying to get close. You already ran through the heartbreaks. Why expose yourself now? These are the people I really want to talk to, because all that really was your trauma response trying to protect you. But you didn't even know that could have been the love of your life. Just pushed them away. Because you think, oh, I'm trying to better myself. I'm on my grind mode. All my time is spent on leveling up or whatever the fuck you got going on. When in reality, you're just hiding. You ain't trying to take that risk of being hurt again. So push them away. Don't have to worry about it. Everything comes from childhood. And it's very important to protect your kids. Young siblings, whoever. That's kind of why I'm making this video. Is don't ever base your worth on what happened to you when you was a kid. Don't ever base your worth on someone that's treating you like shit. You ain't got to sit here and fit in with the crowd, but accept who you are as an individual. Love. I want to say love, but forgive yourself. Forgive yourself and just let it go. Let that shit go. It happened to you and it's unfortunate, but don't let it control your life. Because once you start letting it control your life, that's when things can really go downhill. Things can really go downhill. And that's why I want to make this video, is to connect with those that went through that same childhood trauma as I went through, especially when it comes down to sexual abuse, because I could say without a doubt that, yeah, I've been sexually abused as a young boy. How many people is going to carry that shit to the grave? Let's speak on it from a men's perspective. How many young boys that got touched on, felt on, or full-blown violated and ain't told a soul? Am I gay? Is this shit normal? If I tell somebody, would they believe me? Do I need therapy? I mean, all these questions just come up and it's like, no, what happened to you was fucked up. That's what that shit is. But don't keep that shit within. I don't give a fuck who you find someone that's trustworthy and you tell them. Don't keep that shit in. There's ways of doing it, and this is my way of doing it, is by putting it out there. It doesn't hold power over me no more. And for the young girl that had this shit happen to him, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that you never had any strong male figures in your life that should have protected you. How you should be treated. How you should carry yourself. Don't ever base your worth on looks or how people treat you. It's how you treat yourself, how you show up for yourself. Because you was always worth it. Just know that you always been worth it. Always been worth it. You're not an object. You're not a fucking object. You're someone that deserves love. Genuine love. Connection. And that's how it should be. That's how it should be.